Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanako Overhuber, and I'm your host. My guest today is Jamuna. Welcome to the podcast.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So it's been a while since we talked the last time on the podcast. So I'm sure a lot has happened in your life in the meantime, and a lot of your understandings or your views have changed. So why don't we go into the depth of the healing work that you've been doing with A Course in Miracles and the things that have come up recently and how that is important to you.
Okay. Yeah, it's been definitely a very interesting journey with A Course in Miracles. I definitely have evolved in the past couple of years. I think I was on only a couple of years ago, I think, but a lot has changed. I have definitely gone deeper into really being responsible with the mind, how everything is within the mind, how, we choose to have things play out in the dream of being unfairly treated. I know Jesus talks about, don't see yourself as unfairly treated, and how the ego still holds on to that and projects it. So it doesn't need to see that you're actually choosing it. And, and just being responsible with that. And really feeling grateful, the deeper I go. There's something I was going to say is just how tricky the ego is, but it's not very smart. And I've just been looking at really when Jesus says, in the Course, I sometimes say Yeshua, by the way, there is nothing outside of you. I and I alone have done this to myself. I've been really just going into the dynamics of my family, and just past what seems like past events, and looking at it much more deeply, and handing those beliefs over to Holy Spirit. I'm sure, like in the other podcasts, I talk about how I used to be a heavy drinker. I went through a period of time after my mom passed away or left her body, really just not being aligned with the Course in Miracles. I'm much more today, and really looking at those dynamics and healing those. And sometimes I still feel guilt because, I probably said the wrong things, or I was acting out of the ego, of course, in the darkness. And soon to be 5 years sober this November. And it's definitely the past couple years I have really gone deeper, especially with the responsibility that Yeshua talks about in the Course. And being more grateful for the brothers and sisters who reflected back to me exactly what I was holding about myself. Now I'm a lot more at a place of being responsible, because to keep on projecting those things it's not helpful. That's not what practicing A Course in Miracles to me is about. And accepting the atonement, the responsibility of the miracle worker is accept the atonement for oneself. And forgiveness, everything here can be forgiven. And and just choosing to go within and know that we are the Christ. Each and every one of us is completely sinless and innocent and holy. And to choose to see that in my brothers and in myself. It's definitely been a journey. I'm not perfect, but I'm a lot better than what I used to be. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And what I think is very, very important is to look at our passions. Have you been following your passions these years, your interests, your joy, because that's something that I think is also important for accepting the atonement.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for asking me that question. I have gotten back into doing my art. I recently started again my piano keyboards. I love the piano. It's a very hard instrument in many ways, but I just have a natural affinity with it. Since I was a little girl, I always had some kind of like little keyboard, and I'm going to reveal something. My first conscious memory of life here, um, this lifetime, was actually my dad was a he still is a huge sci-fi fan, and the theme song for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he was watching that, and I remember this is my first memory of playing that theme song by ear as a little girl. And since then, I always had an affinity for keyboards and piano. So I started back again in college. I'm in college now. Um, I took piano one, piano two. I also took some oil painting classes, up to intermediate oil painting. I'm going to be taking advanced this fall semester. Of course, I do my poetry here and there. I haven't kept up with it as much, and yeah, I also have my Facebook group, Living the Atonement, which I share A Course in Miracles things and things that are very aligned, and on my YouTube. You'll share that later. Um, and yeah, so my passions have definitely become stronger. I've been doing my yoga, my meditation, um, yeah, just going deeper into the course and really, really looking at my reactions. I used to be a lot more, I would consider it what people would say in the dream is more like brash, like upfront. I've been learning to take back and look at who is reacting and looking at, my own anger dynamics and not projecting those and having compassion for myself and also having compassion for others. And like recently a situation occurred where someone was reacting the way I used to react, like kind of very similar. And I saw it when I asked for the miracle, and I knew to look at that beautiful sister with the light of Christ. This is what Jesus guided me to do. And to see that was me. And instead of reacting back, but to look at her as me, asking for what I am giving her, that love, that understanding and seeing the cry for love. And, um, I could see now to give her exactly what I was really truly asking for back then, if that makes sense. And it was so beautiful. I think that's also an advancement of, speaking of having no alcohol in my system, because alcohol does nothing. It actually makes things worse, at least in my experience. I mean, someone else can, but um, yeah, soon to be 5 years. And in fact, my sober birthday is November 7th, 3 days before my actual birthday, November 10th. And it's good to have my sober birthday with my actual birthday, I feel, because it reminds me, a lot of people like to go out to clubs and drink and all that stuff, and how now I don't need that. I have different priorities now, different ways of viewing things, at least a lot deeper. One of the things with the Course in Miracles that um, I hear a lot of my brothers and sisters struggle with, uh, or whatever, is the idea of forgiveness. And like I was saying earlier, how looking at our beliefs and seeing that you really chose it, the brothers are just acting it out for you. Like forgiveness recognizes that your brother did nothing, yeah. And so it's a coming back to that responsibility of, you know, you are the creator of the dream and also the hero of the dream. So yeah, so I've been playing piano, um, what else? Yoga, meditation. Um, yeah.
I think another topic that is important is how your relationships have changed, because I believe that there's been major change in your life as far as I've been communicating with you. So I believe there's been a lot of change there. Maybe you'd like to share a little bit about how that has changed.
Yes. Speaking of one of my go-tos, the ego loved to go to anger, lashing out, speaking really harsh words, thinking that it brought me something. I will say with you, if I can, I know that I wasn't always the most pleasant dream figure for you. And one of the things I'm really grateful about is with your dedication, devotion to Jesus and the Course in Miracles, how you always kept that light about me, the truth about me lit within your mind, and to know and to recognize that's not who I really was, that was acting out those things. That was my cries for love. And one of the things I would like to say to you right now is I'm so grateful for that. And it's definitely been a journey with my other relationships as well. Like I said earlier, my reactions aren't as strong. Like, before I used to think just being upfront and straightforward was like the way to go, but I wasn't always doing it consciously with Holy Spirit. I wasn't asking first, I was just coming still again from the ego, from the anger, from the I am the doer, I'm, blah. And so definitely there's been a lot of changes. Just recently, I reconnected with someone very dear to me who kind of the same thing. They live in India now. Um, I didn't always behave or was aligned with the principles of the course. And now she's just so grateful that I'm back in contact with her. Now I'm not afraid to say, I apologize. I'm not afraid to say it because I know deep down who I really am is the Christ. I actually am sinless, am innocent. The Holy Spirit sees only errors to be corrected, not sins. And just like that, really, in truth, I have never sinned. No other brother or sister has ever really sinned. It's looking at it as a simple mistake to be corrected. And so that has, I think, just also with my relationship with myself, looking at that, going deeper with the lessons and with my own practices and stuff, naturally, some things have fallen away and have come to me in a new, like, rejuvenated, renewed kind of state, like, and yeah, and I don't. It's like I can see through the stuff more, the guilt, and how, guilt. It always wants to have separation. Ego always wants to have separation at any cost. And like Jesus says in the Course, there is one problem, one solution. The problem is the guilt. And the guilt that I have chosen, the separation. However, also, the resolution is there too. The Holy Spirit's within my mind and in every brother and sister. And, the only problem is I thought I could separate from God. I chose, but it's never really happened. Jesus says, the separation has really never occurred. And we can choose the Holy Instant at any moment. And in fact, he says, I ask you to choose the Holy Spirit at once. And I forget the rest of the quote, but it's definitely a practice, definitely. But I definitely have come a long way and a lot farther. And now, since I'm really going within, really healing, really being responsible, definitely there has been many shifts in my relationships, and yeah. Hmm. I hope there's not noise. They're doing road work.
I just heard something, and you might
Okay.
want to restart your video again because of the
Okay.
pixel nature of it. Anyways, this is very, very important to see how things have fostered your journey through A Course in Miracles, and you've grown into this forgiveness journey that is so challenging.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go deeper into it as well, and I'd also like to mention something that is fun, because you said it's going to be soon 5 years that you're sober, and on the 5th of December I will have been podcasting 5 years, so that's really fun. So close timing.
That's awesome. One mind, yeah. Wow, it's been that long. Because I know I've been on twice before, and yeah, that's right.
I don't see you. I don't know if the others see you. Anyways.
Is this better? Can you see me?
No, I don't see you.
Huh. Okay.
Okay.
Hold on.
So this idea of how relationships lead to a depth of understanding oneself, and also recognizing and accepting the atonement for oneself is a very, very important idea that you've been sharing now. And I think we can really congratulate you on that recognition. So thank you, Jamuna.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's always I'm grateful to be on the show. Yeah, I'm grateful that you asked. I kind of felt you were going to ask me the past couple months before we did this. So, can you see me now, though? Okay. Is this? I don't know what's going on. Let's see.
So another thing I thought was very important is that you've been following passions that you had let drop before for a while, right? And I think that's really beautiful that has become possible, and that it's part of the way of accepting A Course in Miracles. What I think is so significant in the Manual for Teachers, it speaks about how we are all equal. Nonetheless, our differences have to do with what we have to our journey in the world, the way we come back home, right? So we all have, if you're a teacher of God, you have certain talents and things to give, but it's not because you're special. And I think that's very important to recognize. So A Course in Miracles does affirm you're following your passions and allowing yourself to live the joys that you have, and the abilities and the talents.
Yes, brother. I definitely agree with that. Can you see me yet? What? I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry. Let's see. Now?
Let's just not worry about it
Okay.
and continue.
Speak.
If you want, Henry would like to say something. If you want, you could go out of the live stream and come back in and see if that helps.
Okay. Let me do that.
Okay, Henry, if you want to say something, you're welcome to.
Do you want me to go, or should I leave and then come back?
Sure.
Okay.
So, Henry, you wanted to say something? You raised your hand, or was that not on purpose?
Yeah, yes, it was. When she came back, I have a picture of her. She's on my video. Okay.
Hi. Is it this way, right? Okay.
I see you again, Jamuna. Okay. And Henry just confirmed that he saw you, so it was just my device.
That's okay. It's all perfect, I'm not,
Okay. So I was saying how for Course in Miracles affirms that we live out the talents that we have. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that's easily forgotten when one thinks one has to live by the rules that you read in the book and all this stuff that you can get caught into. The
Definitely.
book affirms our differences, but not as something special, but as something that is part of being a teacher of God.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely, sometimes rules and regulations can get strict, yeah, because it's kind of like an ego thing in some ways. But definitely, Jesus talks about how we're all unique and we all contribute to the atonement in our own unique ways and to utilize those talents. So, no brother or sister is unworthy at all. We're all worthy. We all have gifts. We all have something to share. And we all have full potential as Christ, as our own unique holy self. I agree. Yeah, Jesus says that. And it's important to utilize those gifts. Um, I wasn't always aligned with that. I was more lost in uh, samsara, the cycles. But now I'm definitely a lot more clear, a lot more grounded, a lot more um, forgiving, grateful, and really looking at my life in a whole new way and seeing it with Him. He's always there. The miracle is always there, and it's also important, like with the gifts I share, not to get caught up in likes or look at me, or to really stay in a humble state and just let it go to trusting His guidance, what He wants to use it for, how He is using it, and like Jesus says in the course as well, miracles touch people in situations of which you're unaware, and He's in charge, right? And letting that go, being in that more surrendered mood, and you know, of course, ego wants to come in and be like, well, nobody sees your da 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 da, but it's like, I know that's the ego, that's the false voice, that's the imposter identity trying to be special, yeah. Like you said, none of us are special, but we're all unique, and we're all worthy, all are holy, and all are forgiven. We really are. And all this is just a dream that we made a mistake, um, but it doesn't have to be this way. It can, Jesus demonstrated, you know, the resurrection and true forgiveness, and how the kingdom is at hand. He didn't come here just to be like, hey, I just want to hang out with 12 people and just be cool, hang out in Galilee. He actually really demonstrated it. And like he says, he is equal to us, you know, and he only demonstrated what is our own potential. And he says we will all inevitably demonstrate the same, if not more. And the more and more I really truly go into this practice, the more I truly, truly can see and feel and experience that truth. And there's nothing that Jesus has said that you can contradict, that you can argue with. Amazing. I'm so grateful for our elder brother, and for my brothers and sisters. Yeah.
I'm very happy that you're able to hold the light for people who have similar reactions and actions that you used to experience in yourself, right? In the way you were acting out. And I think that's really, really important. And that's also one of the gifts that one has from having been that way before, right? Or having had certain ways of being that were not exactly what you like to feel like, but you felt that way and one acted that way. And then to learn how to love those people, right? And see that. I think that's a really, really powerful expression of learning A Course in Miracles, or returning home.
I agree. I'm also invited to say is that that's also part of the unique gifts that maybe the Holy Spirit's using through me. That being one of them, you know. Uh, you know, I don't know. That's what came up. But yeah, it's like now, it's much different because there's no separation. Yeah, everyone is you. So now, with the healing that I've done, it's like I can see it much differently. Truly, it's not just words anymore, you know? It's really becoming more of an experience, part of my being, you know? Of course, you know, in the past, you know, I actually found the Course in Miracles 20, almost 23 years ago. And I practice it off and on. Of course, making all the mistakes and errors, thinking I know, thinking this, that, and being puffy, you know, oh, they're not as advanced as me, or, you know, all the trappings of ego. So now I can just be in more of a humble place and just understand. I used to be like that. I I used to. I understand what anger is. Like, does that make sense? I hope it does. And you know, now it's just a much different kind of vision I have. Like, and it's not like just like quoting A Course in Miracles. It's actually I've really come to really experience more of the things that Jesus is saying in the Course. Not everything. I'm not walking on water yet, but I am like really truly experiencing, you know, these things rather than just, you know, going along with it like, oh, well, forgiveness means your brother, what your brother did to you did not occur, okay. Or, you know, I'm not a body, I'm free, for I'm still as God created me. You know, it's much more different now. It's like I experience more of it now. I guess it's also because I'm really truly going deeper and practicing. I think also I'm aligning more in my life with those things that are my gifts, my talents, and really it's a practice too, you know, like every morning I do the rules for decision in chapter 31, um, letting everything go to the Holy Spirit. And of course, during the day, I will fall, but you always get yourself back and you just keep on doing it. But um, yeah, just really getting into that practice. And when you really do the practice, you know, like anything, like piano, art, you know, the rewards is in the consistency. You know, I've learned that perfection is a myth. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes better. So, at least for me, um, at least the perfection that I think that people think about, like practice makes perfect, is an ego kind of thing. But that's just me. But I do know that you can only make progress with the consistency. Like I also run now too. I do running, interval running, jogging. So I never thought I would do that years ago, but now I love it, you know. And I bring the Holy Spirit with me as much as I can remember to. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of topics that we've covered together at times, right? And also I've have it on the podcast. And you once mentioned you would like to speak about some of those. I think the issues with racism and gender and so on that came up in some of the podcasts. I think you mentioned you were interested in saying something about that. Would you like to today or not?
I could speak something on that. Um, First thing that comes to mind is just how, like, speaking of changes, how recently in many years there's it seems to be in the dream that there's a lot of controversy, sorry, with gender. And just staying neutral here, it's very interesting. Um, Racism, you know, that comes up too. But now I look at it in a much different way. I understand that many minds are fearful. And we all act out those fears in different ways. One of them being racist, one of them being angry and lashing out at people, or just, but really, like again, Jesus talks about how it's all really one thing. It's separation, it's the guilt. And the ego will play out those things in the dream and to keep what seems like separation real. And now, let's say if I see that or experience that, again, like with the practice that I'm doing now, understanding where it's coming from and how really nothing is personal. That's another thing that I'd love to do is, or the ego in me, taking things way too personally, which I recognize now as being like an unconscious way of wanting to be special. Yeah? And so now, like, my responses and reactions to what seems like racism or sexism, sure, it might be there, but I know that, it's a fear. It's a fear. And it's not who anyone really is. It's, again, the ego covering over, the Christ in a way and trying to keep them asleep and in the spell. And so now I look at it as if I am guided to speak, I will speak. If I am, whatever thoughts the Holy Spirit wants to give me, I will think those thoughts. Just getting back to that practice and yeah, I think that answers your question.
So does anyone else have a comment or a question they would like to ask at this point?
Sorry about the noise. Road work.
Okay, then we'll continue.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to share before it slips my mind is, also, let's say, because the ego loves to be unfairly treated. Let's say if something happened to me that was racist, I can look at it as, this is the ego wanting me to be unfairly treated in some way. The victim. And I never need to be a victim. And, I can look at my own dynamics, and this is what the ego doesn't want to say, but I'm going to say it, is where am I racist? Where am I sexist? Where am I doing the things that I think maybe someone else is doing? So that's been interesting. The ego doesn't like that at all. It wants to make everything somebody else. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen in the dream, but it's like I said earlier, it's like me going deeper, I can see, oh, I do maybe, like the ego has preferences, and of course I live in Hawaii, so it's different here than in many places with biases, yeah? With certain skin colors, usually, I'm sorry to say, but like people who are more brown it's more normal, while someone who might be Caucasian, they can get this short end of the stick sometimes. Of course, that's the ego dynamics, but, it's interesting, but, really we're all the Christ. But I could see things like in myself that I held unconsciously, like about, stereotypes and prejudices I carried. And so, yeah. And, yeah. You know, another thing too that comes to mind is I read this somewhere. Another teacher, I won't say the name, but they did an article, and the title of the article or the blog was, if you take offense, wait, if you're offended, you must first take an offense, if that makes sense. Like, meaning, if you already carry that, of course you're going to be offended by it, if that makes sense. It was kind of an interesting way of looking at it that I never truly saw that way before. Like, and in the first paragraph, this brother says like how if you take offense, you're agreeing with them. You know, like Jesus says, you know, to take, to be defensive is you're actually creating more of that. So that was an interesting thing. I never truly pondered in those words. Like, if you're going to be offended, you agree with them. Yeah, whatever the offense is, or whatever you see. That's something interesting to ponder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a thing that people argue about. What does that mean, right? If I see it that way, will the person use it and then do more, right? Or will it go away, or what will happen with that, right? And just by changing one's mind, what happens, right? And these are the things, of course, in Miracles addresses all of this, right? But
Yeah.
what is your take on it?
Can you repeat the question exactly? Sorry.
Fear that not being defensive could lead to you being a victim, right?
Yeah, that is true. Okay, now I understand what you're asking. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that, you know, I hear with many teacher students is, oh, if I practice A Course in Miracles, that means I'm going to become a doormat. Not necessarily. I could know through my own path is that, you know, in the past, I probably would have acted out in much more deeper anger. But then again, it comes back to, you know, asking Holy Spirit, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to think? Which takes practice. And I know for myself, if I'm going to act out from a place of anger, it's usually never right, even if it seems right. Like, it's more like if I'm guided to, then I might say something. Or, you know, if a brother is doing something continuously to me, let's say, I can come from a place and be like, you know, I don't think that's very helpful for either one of us. You know, maybe we should try it this way. Or if someone's coming at you with, you know, anger themselves, you can be like, you know what? I think right now we need to calm down. Like, let's talk about this another time. You know, you can say, you know, I don't really care for the way you're speaking to me. But, you know, again, like recognizing where it's coming from too. That's a very kind of fine line, yeah, Wanako, you know, yeah, becoming a victim, but, you know, what was I going to say? That, what was that? But, only the ego would want to be a victim, not the Christ. And it's about recognizing you are the Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to ponder on it, anyways. So when you choose not to feel like a victim, and not to defend yourself as if you were a victim.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually standing up for yourself in a different way. Now, what that feels like, what that is like, and what types of words one used, that's something that is very fascinating, because we are not exactly used to that.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, it's much easier for the ego to speak first. This, Yeshua always says that, or says in the course, the ego thinks first, acts first, reacts first. And I know with my own path, I've been really going deeper and not reacting so much because, like, the ego loves to be the victim. And am I a victim? No. You know, the Christ is eternal, you know, I am under no laws but God's. I am as God created me. Nothing can change that. Nothing can change me, the true holy me. And it's just interesting to see how the ego tries to sabotage. And, not so much now, but I can still see sometimes me wanting to react to things just in general. And it's like, wait a second, you can step back. Yeah.
Many people like to say the sign of mastering the forgiveness process is not whether you get angry, but how fast you let go of it.
Yeah. It's definitely a process. It's not like, like I said, I'm not walking on water yet, you know. It's definitely a process, and it's not, and one shouldn't think it should be instant, even though it can be. But to be gentle on your holy self. We've been conditioned for who knows how many lifetimes and been acting out these things. And, it's so deep within the mind, it's really scary to the ego to just wake up. Yeah, I think Jesus says that somewhere in the course. So it's important to be gentle with yourself. Like with me, I'll speak of myself, is that I can get hard on myself, and now slowly it's starting to get less, you know, and I realized how hard I was on my siblings, because I was hard on myself. Now it's not so much because, the healing that I've done and the journey that I'm continuing to do. And so, yeah, uh, it's you got to be gentle on yourself. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's not easy, but it's also worth it and necessary.
Would you like to share about your YouTube channel, because that's something that's been on your heart since a long time, and you love it so much that you're able to share so much? Would you like to share here a little bit about it?
Would I like to share about it? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel. Um, I know I gave you the handle. It's Jamuna Atma. So that's JAMUNA underscore Atma, ATMA. Yeah, and on that channel, I just share, you know, spiritual wisdom, poetry. Sometimes I play songs I'm doing on the piano. Um, yeah, and then sometimes I share, living in Hawaii. I take a lot of pictures of flowers. I love flowers because they are symbolic to me about the holy instant, the eternal now, like the beauty of it. And so I'll share pictures that I take around my neighborhood in Honolulu, and because it's from my heart. Yeah, it's not to show off that I live in Hawaii, even though I know some people might think that. It's actually because I actually do love flowers, and it's a symbol to me of the Holy Instant. And so that's my YouTube channel. Yeah. I also have a Facebook group. You're welcome to look for it. It's based on A Course in Miracles and teachings that are aligned. And I have a few people that share, and I share, and it's about 214 people. It's called Living the Atonement, and you're welcome to find it on Facebook and ask to join. What else? Yeah, and I also share stuff on your group sometimes, the Holy Curriculum for Joy. And yeah.
So there's a few things I think we should fill in about at the end of this episode. So you've been with the Course in Miracles. You said you got to know it about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been part of your life off and on for a long time now. It's become more consistent. And you've 5 years ago you let go of alcohol, which is a huge step in your life. And we can celebrate that. And I've experienced some of the journey with you, at least from a distance. And it's really remarkable how powerful we are when we remember more of our nature. And I think that's what A Course in Miracles is highlighting, that who we actually are is so glorious that we can't even imagine it in our wildest dreams, because a dream never can get to where it is. So the closest you get there is in the Course in Miracles, it says, is the what's it called, the dream, the one that comes before you awake, the real world, right? The happy dream, exactly. So that's the closest you get to it within a dream. And this forgiveness journey is to get you there, and then something shifts. Anyways, we just can't imagine what that's like. A Course in Miracles does hint at that. It's very joyous, it's very happy, very peaceful, and intensely aligned with our true will, or who we actually are. There's no separation from who we actually are when you are lifted to heaven, right? So it's very beautiful. And I think this joining together on this journey is what's so important. And I think you highlighted that in how you see people differently than you used to, and how your thoughts have changed, and how you've also done something that is very hard for many people, is letting go of alcohol, right? Or of an addiction. I don't know, one might take up a different addiction that is less harmful, or one lets go of it. But in A Course in Miracles, I remember when I was telling you, we were speaking, I was saying the greatest addiction is guilt. And it doesn't matter whether your physical addiction is alcohol or not. I'm just as addicted to guilt, even though I'm not into alcohol, right? And so this letting go, remembering not to follow the addiction of guilt is really the most important. And that in your case, part of it was letting go of alcohol, or the addiction to alcohol. For others, it's something else. But this addiction to guilt is really the main issue.
Yeah, for sure. It's all, like I said earlier, there's one problem, one solution. The problem is guilt. And the ego can make it play out in many different ways and forms, yeah? But it's all just the guilt. And mine was alcohol for a period of time. Sorry about the noise. And, being promiscuous, bad, crazy, chaotic relationships, which was just playing out their own chaos that I felt within myself, I've come to forgive that too, and see the ones that were in a relationship with me much differently, and so much gratitude there. But yeah, it's it's definitely, I'm glad that I don't drink no more. That's all I have to say, because it just made things worse, because it was the guilt. It's just going to play out the guilt anyway. It's a way to try to numb, but it wasn't numbing anything. It was making things worse. It was another defense hidden that was just creating more. Yeah. So.
Anything I haven't asked today that you would like to answer before we wrap up?
Nothing's coming to mind, brother. I mean, I'm just coming from the heart, and I mean, it's all perfect, It's, yeah.
And then I'd like to thank you very much for having joined me again on this podcast, and also being my sibling in this journey with A Course in Miracles. Yeah, blessings to everyone who's joining, who will join, who is listening or watching. Please subscribe to the podcast, both on YouTube and on podcast platforms, and leave reviews and let other people know about it so that they can find it. There's so many people who have been on the podcast. And if you want to be on the podcast, contact me so that we can find a time and a way to do it. Blessings to you all, and until next time.
Thank you so much, brother, for having me. God bless everyone. One love. Ho'oka'i aloha.